GameStop has been around for a long time, 35 years in fact, and back then they were known as Babbage's, selling Atari 2600 games and eventually NES games. And they have been passed around for those 35 years and eventually spun off from Barnes & Noble into GameStop in the year 2000, and from there they've established themselves as the dominant game store after acquiring EB Games for $1.44 billion. But in 2016, they started to slow down, the decline of physical media being mostly to blame. And you can't really run a business that relies on people trading in video games if there aren't any physical games. 2018 was their worst year ever, with a number of CEO changes and then finally putting themselves up for sale in late June. And that deal eventually fell through in January of this year due to lack of financing terms, and now they have a new CEO by the name of George Sherman. And Sherman has a really good track record, but he has his work cut out for him, especially when they just posted a $675 million loss for 2018. While a lot of gamers don't really have too much of a favorable opinion of GameStop, I mean, there are plenty of memes about the store, I would hate to see them go out this way. So here are some ways that I would improve the GameStop gaming experience. First up, clean up the store. Most of these GameStops that I go to are cluttered with Think Geek merchandise that is spilling onto the floor, and some of it isn't even gaming related. And eventually it goes on clearance and then I would assume into the dumpster. Having a ton of items on the floor collecting dust and on clearance really detracts from the experience and makes GameStop feel like I wandered into a thrift store. And then when you have a lot of stuff in GameStop, it makes it hard to maneuver around, and cleaning up the store and opening up a little bit would help make GameStop look more inviting to people and allow them to come in and browse around the store. So now that you have the store cleaned up, let's start getting more desirable used games in there. With Craigslist, eBay, and Facebook, it's never been easier to sell used games, and GameStop is falling behind because the competition is simply better. Mainly because GameStop doesn't offer a lot of money for their trade-ins. I mean, you can get $35 for a Wii U, the Zelda version even. And why would anybody want to trade something substantial into GameStop when there are plenty of people seeking these games elsewhere and willing to pay more? Paying more will definitely get a lot more games in the system, and then a lot more people will want to come in to see what GameStop has to offer. One thing that I like doing is hunting for games at GameStop, and I was actually able to flesh out the majority of my Wii collection just before the Nintendo Switch came out because a ton of people were trading in their older games. But a lot of games, they just sit on the shelf. It's clearly been picked over. And do yourself a favor, the next time that you go into GameStop, look at the sticker that they put on the game. It'll tell you the date that they put it on there. And check to see how many games have been sitting there a month, 2 months, 6 months, or even a year the next time you go in. And you'll be pretty surprised. So we have the store a little bit more sorted out, it's a lot more inviting, but there's one glaring issue: the employees aren't consistent across the chain. And I can understand if these were franchise stores, but they're not. Everyone gets the same memos, and some GameStops have excellent customer service, and I really enjoy being there. And in fact, the one GameStop that I go to every single day is because the staff is just so inviting. They know my name, I know theirs, we chat about video games. It's a really good time for me to stop in. But then on the other hand, you go into a GameStop looking for something that's probably hard to find, and you ask the clerk if they have any in stock, and he just tells you you should have pre-ordered. Well, yeah, no, duh, but I didn't know that it even existed until today. And this is a scenario that actually happened to me. I wanted to get the 1990s movie Ninja Turtle figures by NECA, and NECA always limits the quantity of these Ninja Turtle figures because of licensing issues, but when I looked up on GameStop.com, it said that there were a handful of stores in my area that have it in stock. Well, little did I know that those are pre-ordered pieces already waiting to be picked up, so they didn't actually have any in stock. And that experience was really poor, and I doubt that I'll be going to that location in the future. But being nice is just one part of the customer service puzzle at GameStop. One of the biggest things that people hate about GameStop is being upsold on things that they have no intention of buying. I don't like coming up to the counter with an obscure PlayStation 3 title and then being asked if I want to order the Prestige edition of the Call of Duty for Xbox One. I mean, that's not what I'm here for. So my suggestion is creating an environment where your employees can connect with the customer and learn more about their interests and then upsell them that way. Then you can have more conversations with customers, they feel listened, they want to come back, and they won't feel hassled, and employees won't buckle under the crazy sales metric that you push on them every day. And I know a lot of people seem to think that GameStop will eventually fail. I mean, the next generation of consoles probably aren't going to be offering that many physical games, and Sony has even stopped selling full digital downloads at GameStop. But there still is a possibility that GameStop CEO George Sherman can turn this company around and make GameStop a place that people really want to go to. Let me know where you stand with GameStop. Do you think that they can turn things around? I personally hope so, because surprisingly in Chicago, there's only one independently owned video game store and it's a real trek to get there. And GameStop offers me that gaming experience where I can just browse and pick up random used games. So if you like this video, give it a like, and if you're new here, in addition to these discussion videos, I have a series called Retronomics where I discuss the factors affecting video game prices, and another series called Viewer Voted Review where you, the viewer, get to choose what retro video game I review next. So if that sounds interesting, consider subscribing for future content. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Super Nicktendo, and I'll see you next time.